Okay, let's go. Any business can grow thanks to AI. I am a big believer in what I just said. And that's not because I am simply an optimist believer. I believe in what I just said because I've seen both my company and a lot of other businesses around growing thanks to the use of AI. But now, what exactly is using AI? Because AI is something that is mentioned probably thousands of times per second right now in the world, and it's way more than simply talking to a chat interface like ChatGPT, Grok, or Gemini. So in this video, I'll dissect different ways you can implement AI within your business, primarily within the backbone and the operations of your company. And I'm also going to do that by mentioning specific examples of what's going on within my own company, which is a service business, in this case, an agency building websites and apps for clients. And I'm also going to mention a few examples of some of our clients where we've helped them implement AI, so you can just basically steal some of these tips and tricks for your own business. The best way to start thinking about how to use AI in your company is to essentially think about your own operation as it is today. Whatever you do, I don't care right now. If it's a product, a service, you have customers that pay you for some kind of delivery, whatever that is. So what you can do is literally take something like this and a pen, or open something like Excalibur, Miro, or FigJam, and you can start drawing what's going on in your business right now. Just map out the entire operation. Once you do that, you will have a great picture of what is going on in your business right now. And if you're stuck at this process, maybe you can start with your own tasks. Just start drawing what you do on your business from Monday to Friday, and with what people you interact from, what teams, what areas, and what is the output that you are creating. Or another way to look at this is basically by mapping out what each area or team in your company is doing. And last but not least, try to think about the customers. What are your customers doing when interacting with your own business? Because that could be a starting point so that you can then take that process and apply it to your own team and your own operation. Essentially, what you want out of this exercise is to have an entire map, an entire flow of what happens operationally in your company. Congrats! Now, what you have is basically a set of inputs and outputs. Essentially, what are things that are coming up into your company as inputs, how you're processing those inputs with your team, and what outputs you're creating. And this is not only about the delivery you create to each customer. This is not about essentially what you're giving or what you're delivering to customers. It's also about outputs you're creating within the company that will then be used to create new outputs. They will be then used as new inputs so you can create results. This is something that happens every single day in your company. I'm just trying to put this into words. With this inputs and outputs map, you will start finding patterns, things that are being repetitive, things that could be standardized, things that are being done maybe by two people at the same time, things that could be automated, things that could be deleted even. And this way, you can start asking yourself, how might we replace this, or optimize this, or automate this, or even eliminate this with AI? The answer could come later, but the main point of this exercise is that you start asking yourself these questions. Now, let me give you a very specific example of what a typical input is for any kind of company. And I'm going to use my own business as an example. That is meetings. Pretty much any business, no matter what type of company it is, runs a lot of meetings. And meetings not only apply to getting together for coffee in the office space, or having a meeting over Zoom or Google Meet. It also applies to phone calls, WhatsApp messages, text messages, or voice messages, which kind of happen pretty much every single day at every single minute at this point in time in history. In our case, as I mentioned, we are an agency building websites and apps for businesses, and we do a lot of meetings, both internal meetings within the team, but we also share a lot of conversations with clients. And me, since I'm the CEO and I run the sales team, in my case, I also have a lot of interactions with customers and prospects, primarily through WhatsApp. So what we try to do is capture every single second of each interaction within all of those conversations. So a basic example of this is, for example, going to every single meeting we do with an AI agent or a note taker, essentially, that records the entire conversation and then spits a transcript and some summarized insights we can use eventually. And I'm going to tell you how in a minute. In our case, we use Fathom, but there are dozens at this point of tools. And even if you don't want to use like any additional tool, you can just simply, for example, run your own business communication with Google Workspace or Microsoft Teams. And they already have built-in tools like Gemini in the case of Google that they basically record all the meetings and create transcripts and give you summarized outputs and insights as next steps. In our case, what we do, because we're just big fans of this, we do every single meeting in Google Meet, whether an internal meeting or a meeting with a client, and we go to every single meeting with Fathom, which is this AI agent that I just mentioned. We don't use the summarized information that Fathom gives us after each meeting, even though it's pretty good. We just take the transcript and we process the transcript with Grok, which in our case is kind of like our go-to sort of AI agent for kind of the day-to-day sort of data processing. Gemini and ChatGPT could also work here. We just prefer Grok. It's kind of a preference, but any of these tools just do the job. And here we make a big effort in trying to dissect the entire conversation, which sometimes could be like a 60 or 90-minute conversation. And with the power of something like Grok, get every single detail that is very important from the conversation that we can then use as not only a summary, but also essentially documentation for the project and tasks for the team. So now this kind of creates a great workflow because we go from meeting to transcript to a summary of the meeting. And then in our case, since we do websites and apps, we create from that transcript tasks in our project management tool, which is Asana, but it could be anything. We create product documentation and user stories, which also go to Asana, but at the same time, they are documentation that will then feed the rest of the project, give us information to validate with the client and the product owners, etc. So you can actually go back to your map that you did in the previous step and start thinking, how many conversations am I having on a day-to-day basis? And what is it that I can do right now to start recording them and creating actually a record of those conversations that I can then go process with some AI tool and then automate by implementing some AI process. This is a very clear way to get started with this. Now, a third way you can start thinking about AI within your business is with a very basic concept of showing instead of telling. So yes, show, don't tell. Again, going back to our agency, which I'm using as a main example within this video, we used to do a lot of explanation around ideas. Since we design websites and apps, there's a lot of ideation going on when we do a product with a client. And we go through these conversations where we talk a lot about potential features a product could have, or potential ways a screen could look like, or a potential feeling that we can create in a user. Showing those things isn't that easy before hopping into the design. So something we would do before all of this AI revolution would be essentially facilitating ideation workshops with our clients where we would have like this shared whiteboard and we would just do a lot of drawings and sketchings and things like that where we could basically recreate what we were trying to design before designing it. And that was pretty good at the time, but now it's definitely not enough. So what we're doing right now is reusing all of those recordings that I just mentioned. And after processing that and after getting all of that information for those conversations, we go straight to tools like V0 or Lovable or Volt, and the list kind of goes on different tools you can use right now where you can prompt and get results, like visual results. And essentially we create prototypes incredibly fast. So a typical workflow for us on a day-to-day basis is hopping on a meeting, and this not only applies to like day-to-day meetings with clients, but it also applies to sales meetings where I go talk to a prospect that tells me a problem they have in the business and how they think we might solve it with a website or an app. I record that conversation. We dissect every single piece of problem or every single little operational problem they have right now, and we kind of come up with potential ideas or potential solutions that might work to help the business or help their customers. And then silently, after the meeting, I get out of there I take the transcript, I process that with my favorite AI tools, I create some product documentations and definitions, I do a little bit of research, and then I go into V0, which is a beautiful tool that Vercel created. I literally build a prototype of a web app, a mobile app, or a simple website in a matter of minutes. And literally, I can deploy that to a public link, share that with the prospect or with my client or with the team, and essentially ask for the feedback on something that's actually live. It's not going to be obviously a real production version of the product, because that's exactly what we're going to be working on eventually, but it's a first representation of the conversation and all of the ideas that basically happened and we came up with together during our conversation. What used to take a bunch of days, a bunch of meetings, even weeks at some point, now is something that I can do extremely fast, and I can get immediate response and immediate feedback from the stakeholders. The best way to get started with this is, please drop everything you're doing. You can even drop this video right now. Go to V0, go to Lovable, go to Volt. I'm going to leave all those links below in the description, and start asking these tools to do something for you. And if you're kind of stuck, or you have kind of a creative block at that point, go to something like the Vercel library. There's a huge community of people deploying apps all the time, and you can use that as a starting point and create your own version of something. So we've discussed your own operation, inputs and outputs. We've discussed recording meetings and using those transcripts to process things. And we've discussed creating prototypes so you can show solutions instead of telling them. What's next? There's a great way you can start using all of those transcripts and recordings and basically data inputs from your business to start leveraging a lot on AI. And that is using project knowledge hubs, or essentially knowledge hubs. Now, a knowledge hub is something that I personally took from the tool Claude. So Claude, which is another one of these popular AI tools built by Anthropic in this case, is not only a chat you can use to interact with AI the same way you would do with Grok or Gemini or ChatGPT, but Grok also has a projects feature. So you can create projects within Claude. You can put a name to that project, you can put a context, and you can give instructions to that project. And additionally, you can add a bunch of context information, which could be either text input, like you can actually write or paste a bunch of text within different files you create, or you can simply attach, for instance, a bunch of PDF documents. And you basically create like a database of knowledge within that project. Once you have all of that set up within your own Claude project, you can now start creating multiple chats that essentially not only have the power of AI, where Claude itself is answering your inputs and your questions and whatnot, but also all of that is being fed by all of that sort of instructions and context you gave to the project. So essentially, you are chatting with the project, and this is where things get really interesting. So again, I don't care what your business does, either if it's a product or a service in whatever industry, you probably have projects or initiatives of any kind, but there are things that go on a day-to-day basis within your team, within your customers, and within your entire business that you can refer to as projects, initiatives, or essentially day-to-day tasks that get repeated over and over again, and they happen within a context. So either a project, an initiative, or even a team or an area, you can now start treating all of those things as projects within Claude. So think of any project within your business, area, team, or initiative as a Claude project. So for instance, in our case, we have projects with clients. So for every project that we do with a client, for example, a mobile app, we will go to Claude and we will create a project for that specific client. And throughout the process, sometimes it's a 3-month project, for example, or a 2-month project where we build an app within those 8 to 12 weeks. We use this project as our main knowledge hub throughout the process. And we feed that project with every single piece of information we have about the product. So, product documentation, user stories, description about features, description about the users that will use that product, information about the business model, information about the founders behind it. We add every single summary of every single meeting we have with product definitions, and the list goes on and on. So essentially what we can do is chat with the project at all times, and that gives us a lot of insights and a lot of leverage, and primarily speed, I would say, and clarity within the day-to-day of the project. So Claude is a great way to start using AI, basically AI-powered projects within your business. And you can just start doing this right now. Just go to Claude, create an account, and start running your own projects. Another way to use AI, which is basically kind of the one that everyone's doing it right now, is just overall research. And this sounds kind of obvious, but yes, a lot of people is replacing Google search and different tools to research on topics and different things with AI tools. So you can use Grok, which is fed by the entire Twitter or X database, which has a lot of information, or you can use Gemini, which is also kind of powered by the entire search engine of Google, or you can use something a little bit more cool like Perplexity, which will give you a bunch of information around different topics on the internet, and you can even use that to read the news. I'm not kidding, it's actually quite cool. Now, on a more advanced level, you can start using AI agents, and this is something that gets a little bit more technical, but there are a few tools you can try out to start exploring yourself on automating a few tasks with independent agents. So Lindy, for example, is one of these tools where you can automate a bunch of processes, and it has a bunch of templates you can use as inspiration. Manus is also another very interesting one, and I would say even more powerful than Lindy these days. And again, it has a bunch of ideas in different industries and use cases you can use as a starting point, which could be great to just give it a shot and see what happens. An agent that I love, or a way to build agents that I love, is using 11 Labs. And this, I got inspired here by one of my own clients. We helped this US-based ranch build a website, and I was really intrigued by the fact that the founder is a non-technical person, created this phone agent with 11 Labs that was great. So thanks to that, now customers could visit his website, see this phone icon floating in the website, click on it, and start like a voice conversation with an AI-based agent that sounded incredibly real. And that's a great way to basically give support or sell support to potential customers and prospects visiting your site in an incredibly immediate way. So Lindy, Manus, and 11 Labs and different AI agents are just incredibly interesting tools you can start exploring now to go a little bit beyond everything that I mentioned before, which is essentially basic AI usage. Now, the final and most advanced way to implement AI is, again, even more technical at this point, and you'll probably need to leverage on a technical team, is to start implementing built-in AI within products. So within existing software solutions you already have. So if you run a company that has its own back office app or some kind of dashboard or an internal web app, or even use a web app that your customers interact with. So for instance, if you're a SaaS or some kind of business where your clients use for your own web app or mobile app, then obviously you can have built-in AI. And this is thanks to all of these AI companies building incredible APIs, very well documented, so that we as developers can connect to them and actually add a bunch of kind of native AI features within that product. One way to do this is basically by what we love calling AI enrichment, which is essentially when there's a bunch of information the user is creating within the app, and then that travels to OpenAI, for example, or the Claude's API, gets processed by some dynamic prompting, and that comes back as enriched information that the user sees within the app. We've done this with multiple SaaS businesses at this point, and it works really well. Another way you can implement built-in AI within your own app is basically by using assistants. Again, we've done this a bunch of times with different, especially SaaS businesses, where we use the assistants API of OpenAI, and we can then have some kind of built-in assistant within the app do things within the database and the backend of the app for the user, and then you can create whatever custom interface you want so that the user can interact with that assistant, for example, a custom chat. So there you have it. These are all the ways you can start implementing AI today. And as I mentioned, it starts very easily. Just grab a little notepad, grab a pen, grab Excalibur or just a big whiteboard and start drawing. Start thinking about the operations that are happening in your company right now and start looking for patterns. Start looking for things that could either be automated or simply optimized with some AI usage. And if all of this kind of feels extremely difficult, just start recording your meetings. That's a great way to get started. Start using some AI note-taking apps so you can start seeing kind of the power of having some AI processing within tasks that you're going to still do every single day. So I'm very excited about this, and I hope to see you and your company start thriving a little bit more thanks to AI and primarily start growing. Thanks for watching.